Well, it's 55.
All right. And, okay, you started streaming. Oh, you got to go on intro to video.
Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum Dum. Hello, friends. So great to see you coming in. Irene from Montreal and Deborah from Topeka. Teresa from Houston. And I saw Susie B. from South Florida. Tina from South Carolina. Coralia from Central Illinois. Hello, everyone. Hi, Noreen. It's so great to see you all. I think I saw Harry. Hi, Harry. Williamsburg, Virginia is Cherith. Hi, Deborah. Nice to see you all. Hi, Angela from Oklahoma. And Authentic Health. Howdy from Texas. Hi. I see lots of friends. Cheris from Wisconsin. And blessings from Yorktown, VA, says Nancy. And hello from Maryland, says Donna White. Pum, pum, pum. Yep. Yeah, so great to see you Monday night. That's what we do every Monday night. I say hello to you. I say hello to people I don't know. And we do this every Monday night. We do one thing and one thing only, and that is we discuss homeopathy, and I teach you what I know. Tell you about my experiences. I'd like to hear you share your experiences with everyone as well. I'd like to hear your stories for each other, because tonight we're going to be talking about a really fun subject. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joette Calabrese, and for those who do, welcome, friends. It's great to see you all. Love it. Jackie's from Rotan, Honduras. Nice. Cool beans, says Harry. So tonight we're going to be talking about Fido and Fluffy and Bessie, treating pets and livestock. It is one of my favorite subjects. I actually spent a lot of time teaching this in our Cool Kids course to homeopathy. Should you be interested, you can go to Joette's Learning Center and scroll down to Cool Kids homeopathy course. It's we had a lot of fun putting it together because kids are really, it's a great way to introduce them to homeopathy, get them accustomed to using the medicines, get them revved up and studying and finding the joy of being able to treat their pets and livestock. So, and I particularly love doing this for the same reason, because when I was raising my kids, we had goats, we had chickens and ducks, we had bees, we had a dog that gave birth. It was a home birth, right in my office, mind you. Her name was Dolly, and from that litter came Buster. So Buster was, yes, he was a home birth. And we had a very, very sickly kitten. I've written about that kitten, Carmelina. And we lived out in the country, so I treated cows and goats and llamas. Oh, yes, llamas too. And horses and puppies and pigs and cats, wild birds. I treated cattle. I treated birthing cows and their calves. I've treated wild squirrels, a wild squirrel, I should say, and a chipmunk. And of course, even plants. I've treated plants. We'll talk more about plants another time. And then, of course, us, we humans. I spent a lot of time treating humans, my family, and when I first started my practice back in the 80s. So, I want you to know, first of all, the question that I often get when it comes to treating animals is, this is the question. So if it's a puppy and it's only 3 pounds, and the mother needs a remedy as well, and the mother's maybe 25 pounds, do I give the puppy fewer pills? Or you could even go further than that. You could say, does a cow get more pills than a chipmunk? So let me say that I've done it both ways. Some say you need to give more pills to a large animal, and some say you don't. So let me just start by saying this, that when you administer a medicine, a homeopathic medicine, which are the little pellets, if that's what you're buying, you can also buy homeopathic medicines, my friends, in alcohol and also in water. Or you can also put the pills into water and have them dissolve and then administer it. But let me just say that for dogs that are easy, like Buster, I used to pour the bottle, the contents of the bottle into the cap, and then I would quickly turn it upside down on the floor, and he would come and lick it up. I also used to put it in my hand sometimes, but either way, it was sometimes if I was super busy, I didn't want to wait till he licked, and he finished licking and licked all over my hand, I would just put it on the floor and he would come and he'd take it. So there are a lot of animals that are willing to do that. And then there are some animals that are not willing to do that. Some dogs, especially, reluctant dogs, reluctant cats, don't necessarily want to take a remedy. Cats are particularly difficult. But I've also treated an entire flock of chickens. I've written an article for the National Center for Homeopathy and Homeopathy Today long ago. I've written for them a few times over the years. And one that was written long ago was about my flock of chickens that were, and I'll leave it at that. You might want to take a look at, it was malaria. It was, what was it called? Was it malaria? Sorry, I'm blanking on what it was. I'll have to think about it for a minute. No, it was not malaria. It was not mosquito. No, it was not malaria. It was, it'll come to me in a minute. But at any rate, it was an article about how I treated my entire flock of chickens that were all dying. And I do want you to, if you have a flock of chickens, if you have a herd of cattle, if you have a reluctant dog or cat, you need to know how to administer to that particular animal. Let's just see. Somebody's going to come up with the answer for me because I've forgotten, for goodness sakes. It was back in I think it was like 92 maybe, that cholera. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Dolly. Yes, it was cholera. Barb says the same thing. It was fowl cholera, and which is deadly. Now, I'm not going to go into it, but I will tell you that when I realized what it was and what the medicine was that was needed, at first I put it in each chicken's beak. So in other words, my children would bring me the chicken. I would pry open the little beak, put a few pellets in there. When I say a few, maybe 3 pellets. For that, I don't remember what pharmacy I purchased the remedies from, but it was probably 3 to 5 was the correct number to comprise a dose. But as I recall, I put about 3 pellets into the chicken's mouths, and then they would take that chicken, and then my next son would come with the next chicken, and I would do it that way. And that's when we were in really dire straits because the chickens were dying pretty quickly. I mean, within hours, we lost many chickens. And we had, I think, 30, 35, something like that. But we lost many chickens in very short order. And so once we had treated those that remained with the pellets in their mouth, then I finally realized they're going to need another dose. And to go through this again, the next dose, we weren't going to wait till the end of the day to give the second dose. We had to move quickly. So we had to keep treating them pretty frequently. And so then we put the pellets in the trough of water. And so anytime they had any water, which of course they did on a regular basis throughout the day, they were getting another dose, and we never lost a chicken from the moment we started to administer the medicine, which happened to be Cupra metallicum. We never lost another chicken. And they not only survived, but they survived well enough to continue laying eggs in spite of the fact that the prediction in the old vet books that I had was that at least most of the chickens would die from fowl cholera, and at least, and most of them, 50% of them, I think they said that they expected there would be, they would not be able to lay eggs. And they all did indeed continue laying eggs. And we lost a number of them to cholera until I realized what it was and determined the medicine. So in that situation, because it was a dire situation, I used the method of putting the pellets directly into the mouth of each chicken until we could get a handle on it. Then I put it in the water, it dissolved, and then they were drinking from the water. Now that is a method I want you to remember, friends. If the condition is not dire, then put it in their water. It may still be dire if you put it in the water, but if it's very serious and you need to move quickly, let's say they're hemorrhaging, the animal is likely going to die in short order or is very, very sickly, then you want to try to get the remedy into the mucosa of the mouth and not wait for them to take a drink of water. So in that situation, you would put it directly in the mouth. Now, let's say you can't do it. Let's say it's a pet lion. You can't put it in the mouth. Now you're going to get the remedy and put it in some water. And when I say some, I know this sounds vague, but generally you could put it in, say, 8 ounces of water in a bottle and put a dose or so maybe 5, 6, 7 pellets of water into about 8 ounces of 5 to 6, 7, 8 pellets in 8 ounces of water. Wait for it to dissolve. Shake it and succuss it 10 times just to make sure that it's really totally succussed. And then you can put that in a spray bottle and spray it around the mucosal area of the mouth. You could even lift up the tail and spray it under the tail. You could put it at the genitalia, especially if it's a birthing cow. You could spray it at the genitalia. So it's a mucosal area of the body. You could spray it into the eyes, lift up the ears, spray it into the ears a little. The best place, as far as I'm concerned, that we are most likely going to get the best results is the mouth, the nose, because that's the mucosal area. So what you want to do is make sure you get it in there. That's what's most important. And if it's a dire situation, just like for a human, my friends, it is the same for an animal as it is for a human. If it's dire, it needs to be administered more frequently, perhaps every 5 minutes if death is imminent, perhaps every 15 minutes, maybe to load up for the first hour, every 15 minutes for 1 hour. After that first hour, now you can back off a bit. And so you want to make sure that you're getting it in there and getting it in frequently if it's very serious. Now, if it's not so serious, then you can just put it in the trough, whether it's for a cow or it's for chickens or ducks. Or last week I wrote in my blog about Mr. Fish, and it was administered into his bowl. The remedy was added to the bowl. Yeah. Let me just see what everyone's saying. All righty. So, a lot of times people ask me questions about animals. They say this, but my dog can't answer questions. He can't tell me what kind of pain it is. My friends, that's why homeopathy is so great. Because being able to use homeopathy requires that you increase your observational skills. It's up to you to decide what's going on. And you should not theorize. You don't say the dog must be in pain because he's just laying around. No, that doesn't necessarily mean that. Now, dogs will pant if they're in pain, or they'll yelp out. Okay, that means pain, potentially, yes, certainly. But it's up to you to determine what's going on. And the body will tell you everything. That dog will tell you. If the dog is salivating, if the dog has diarrhea, if the dog has odors. All of these symptoms are what, my friends? Gifts. Symptoms are a representation of what's going on in the body on a deeper level. And in many ways, we may not have ever any idea of what exactly it is, but we do know what the symptoms are. And so we use the symptoms to determine the medicine. I'll say that again. We use the symptoms to determine which homeopathic medicine to use. We can also use the name of the condition. If we have symptoms and the name of a condition, that helps us out even further. So I love this. Think about fish. I've treated fish in a bowl or in an aquarium. And in Español, live fish intended to be eaten is called pescado. I said that with an Italian accent, excuse me, pescado. And pez, when it's still swimming around. And I always thought that was funny because while it's still pez, that's when you treat it. All righty. So a spray bottle is a very good way to administer medicine. You can do that to a cow, to spray right on the snout. You can do that for a large animal. I've treated camels. Excuse me, not camels, llamas. I've never treated a camel. I've treated llamas and horses and those large animals. Sometimes if they are very docile, excuse me, you can lift up their lip and tuck the pills on inside between the lip and the gums. Very great place for the medicines to be held, because that's loaded with mucosal membrane. It's all mucosal membrane, and that's where it will be administered very, very quickly. Okay, I will tell you that I treated a cow once years ago, and she had just given birth, and the farmer called me and said that the cow had milk fever, which meant that there was not enough calcium. When the blood calcium levels are drop too low, and it usually happens right after birth. So she couldn't stand up, she couldn't recover, and he knew that in the past he'd have to put the cow down or she would just die on her own, and then the calf would not have a mother, would not have milk, etc., and it would be a terrible loss, expensive, time-consuming, an awful event. And so he called me up and asked me what I knew I could do, and I told him to give her, let's see if everyone knows what I gave her. Well, let me just tell you this. It was really fun. He sent me a picture of the calf, and I had it on my screen for years until we moved, and then the screen, rearranged itself, so to speak. And they named the calf Joette. It was a little girl calf. So, see if anybody knows what remedy might I have used for this calcium problem. Karen Johnson, Elizabeth Nair, Barbara from Toronto. Okay, so Elizabeth says calcarb. You're right, Elizabeth. Karen Johnson says calcarb. Yeah, Barb was thinking maybe carbo-veg, and that's a good thought, because it is a carbolic medicine, but it also has that collapse. It's true. Calc-Phos, says Leslie. Good, also very good possibility. Sue says Calc-Phos. Kelly says calcarb. It was calcarb. I suggested calcarb 200. And as I recall, it was a long time ago, friends, so I don't remember exactly how I suggested using it, but I think I said every 15 minutes or something like that. And I asked him to keep in touch with me so that I couldn't get over there at that moment. I had office hours, and he lived a few hours away. So he just was calling me on the phone. I never saw him, never actually even met this farmer. He just heard about me and contacted me. And so he called me back about an hour later. He said she got up. She's standing up. It looks like she's completely recovered. He was ecstatic, as one can imagine. Now, also, when it comes to cows, there's also mastitis. Very important to know what medicines to use for mastitis, whether it's a mother, human mother, or it's a cow mother. The remedy often is belladonna, especially if it's very painful. Now, do you know that it's painful from a cow when a cow has mastitis? Well, touch the teat and see. If you touch her and she backs off, you bet it's tender. But the belladonna also means that it would be hot and swollen and maybe even shiny because it's so swollen. Extremely painful. We think of belladonna. Look, I'm not going to go through each of these conditions, but I do want to give you this idea. I want you to understand whether it's a mother who has a breast that's like that, hot, red, shiny, painful, or it's a cow giving that has mastitis. It's the same thing. More often than not, it's the same. Now, I will tell you that one of our puppies, when we had a litter at home, had a terrible discharge from her ears. It was black. Now, if I repertorize in my repertory for humans, which is, my Robin Murphy's repertory that I have sitting right here, and I look under ear, discharge, black, it's going to be different than it would be for a dog. So I urge you, if you are treating animals, my friends, I want you to be sure to get a hold of Dr. Richard Pitcairn, Pitcairn, Dr. Richard Pitcairn's veterinary repertory. Very important to own that book. Now, he's a classical homeopath. I've gotten to know him. I've interviewed him in my academy. And he's classical, but the book is right on the mark. So if you look under ears, discharge, black, it's a completely different set of medicines. Generally speaking, you will see the same conditions over and over again, but bloat in an adult human is different than bloat in a horse. Bloat in a horse can actually cause its demise. In a human, it just looks and is very uncomfortable and looks odd. I just saw a man today. I was walking on the beach. I saw a man who was probably about 50 years old. He was not obese, but he had a belly that it literally looked like he had swallowed a beach ball that was completely tight. This poor man obviously was suffering. And so it is a little different when it's for animals than it is for humans in that regard. But lycopodium is for a man, 200C. Lycopodium twice daily is one of our best medicines. Sometimes it's mixed with arsenicum, sometimes it's not. And that's a great medicine for a very bloated belly like that man had that I saw on the beach today. But for a horse, what are we going to do? Lycopodium 200C. It's the same thing, twice daily. Even though it could be the horse's demise, it won't be the man's, but nonetheless, it is still the same medicine. So I don't want you to get caught up in species. It really, more often than not, except for perhaps, a couple of conditions such as the discharge from the ears, but more often than not, my friends, you are going to see that it works across the board. And it will make your life much, much easier. So I'm going to tell you a story about Rascal, who's a mutt. I think Rascal was found at the pound. And so Rascal had some difficulty. It was Donna's dog. I think Donna's even talked about it. She's joined us many times here. And he lost his ability to walk. His two back legs were completely lame. Just lost. It was just gone. There was no particular injury that Donna or her husband could recall. But he just couldn't climb. He couldn't jump anymore. He couldn't jump off the bed. He couldn't walk. He was dragging his back legs. And they assumed that was the end. And so she gave Rascal a combination of arnica and ruta. And I'm going to tell you, my friends, I think it was the ruta that did the job. That did the heavy lifting. Now, perhaps there was pain. Arnica would have been very useful, but ruta is very specific for lameness, whether it's a human or it's a dog or a horse or a cow or a llama or a duck. All animals. If there's lameness, the first remedy we think of, it's not the only one. Friends, I don't want you to get the idea that when I tell you ruta is one of our best remedies for this, I say it try to be very careful with my words. I'm not saying that I'm always successful, and I do try to be very careful. And I say it is one of our best medicines. But if you look that up and you look under legs, dragging, or lame, etc., or you're looking at tendons in the repertoire, you're going to find many, many medicines from which to choose. I'm just telling you the one that is the most commonly used. And so she used it, I think, during that one day, and then that night she said he was walking a little differently. The next day, he jumped off the bed. They used to have to pick him up. They actually had to take him outside and hold him so that he could urinate, and hold him up so he could urinate. The next day, he jumped off the bed and was urinating on his own outside. And the third day, she said, he was playing with the other dog in the family, and it was done. It was over. It's all finished. So regardless of whether or not it is a dog, a cat, a cow, I want you to remember that, okay? Now, we're going to go tonight, when we go to Mighty's, we're going to be talking about another case. And this is a case of the dog Lily. And I'm going to talk about Lily. Lily's not been given a medicine. This is not a testimonial like it was for Rascal, but I want to tell you how I'm thinking about Lily. All right. So, Donna's here. We stopped the remedy, and he's still doing well. And that's exactly what one should do. When the medicine acts and it's over with, we don't continue. Why? Why is that? Why do you think that is? Why would we stop the medicine if it was acting? I'd like to know what you think that is, my friends. And then I'll give you the explanation that I'm hoping makes an awful lot of sense for you. Yeah, wish I'd known about that remedy for my lame dog I lost, yes. Harry says, because it can cause approving. It can cause approving. But even more importantly, Leslie B. says, yes, it can cause approving. Yes. Now, I'm not afraid of proving, friends, and you shouldn't be either. It just means you've just gotten too much, and then you stop, and that's it, because it uprooted the condition. Yes, it uprooted the condition. Very good point, Donna. Very good point. You don't want to prove it, says Barb in Milwaukee. Yes. Because, yes, I would say these are all so far. Let's see if we get any other answers here. You don't want to prove it. Robin Gross, I wish I had known. Okay, so here we go. I think you've mentioned that already. You've uprooted the problem. All right, so you don't prove it. Yep, good. So you don't prove it. One only wants to administer when a remedy is needed, stop when not required. I really like the way you said that, Janet, because the body has now taken over. I like the way you said that, Tina. You're absolutely right. The medicine is actually still acting. Yes, the medicine is still acting. And here's one other, I really like the way you're putting this, friends. I also want you to think of this. These are not supplements. These are not vitamins. You see, we have a paradigm in our world that teaches us you take vitamin C, you take vitamin D is the hot one now. Just take it forever. Oh, yeah, well, you'll be tested in 6 months. Just take it for 6 months. Just take that synthetic vitamin D. You just go ahead. Don't bother eating foods high in vitamin D. Don't get in any sunshine. Just take the synthetic vitamin D. Supplements, vitamins. People take multivitamins for years. Nay, decades. So, my friends, I have to remind you that this is medicine. This is the right medicine. This is the medicine we've all been looking for. I tell people that all the time. When people say, so what is homeopathy? And I know I only have a few minutes to explain. I don't go into how it's made. No. I don't go into explain how old it is. No. I don't explain how it was destroyed politically back in the 40s, 30s, and 40s. No, I don't go there. I tell them this is the medicine, my friends, that we've all been looking for. This is actually the one you thought you were getting when you went to the doctor for the urinary tract infection, and instead you got an antibiotic that only promulgated it into the next antibiotic, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, whereas homeopathy would have cut it short pretty much the first time around, perhaps the second time. So it's not a vitamin. It's not a supplement. Is it holistic? I suppose. I think holistic, the word holistic is too weak. Homeopathy trumps all medicine. How can I be so bold as to declare something like that? Because it's been around for over 200 some years. There is so much clinical evidence. We've used double-blind provings, double-blind studies. Double-blind is a homeopathic term. It's been used in hospitals all over the world. And the people who don't know about it, ironically, my friends, are the Americans, the North Americans. We're the only ones who don't know about it. All right, perhaps China. But it's the second most used medicine in the world. What's the first? Chinese medicine. Not because it's here, but because it's in China, and that's where the large populations exist. The third most used medicine in the world is conventional medicine. But because we live in the United States of America, and every other commercial, every other ad in every women's magazine, every billboard, everywhere is loaded with conventional drugs, people think that is the only way. They think surgery is the only way. This is the way that you can get a lot of great results. It's not 100%. Nothing is 100%, my friends. Nothing is 100%. All right. Yeah, we need it so badly. Yeah, so Ruta, I've written about Buster when he strained a ligament. Was it torn? I think it was strained on my blog. And Ruta is an incredible medicine for that. Absolutely. All righty, let's see what we've got here. So, can we see any more questions here? Great Falls, Montana. Hello from Minnesota, from the Smokies. Mexico City, monsoon. Foul cholera, yes, thank you very much. Foul cholera epidemic. When our old tabby cat was already deaf, blind, and ailing, he got distemper from local raccoons who were dying from it. Vet info says it's always fatal, but I refuse to believe that, so I treated him according to the signs and symptoms with heat bar salt in his water, and he recovered to live another 8 months. Nice job, Alice. See, here's the thing. When we're looking for something to do in our lives, how about curing? How about having those kinds of highs in our lives? Christine says, I put it on a small piece of cracker with a thin smear of peanut butter for it to stick and give it to my dogs, open-faced, and works every time. Yes, let me also, I'm so glad you brought that up, Christine, because we're told not to have any food in the mouth when we administer homeopathic medicines, and yes, that is the optimal way. But my friends, if you're treating a goat that's constantly chewing its cud, or you're treating a baby, a nursing infant that's constantly nursing, you'll never get it in. So you just do it. I've actually put the remedies in food from when we had 3 puppies and the mother dog when we had a litter in our home, and I did put it in the food sometimes. I give Medorrhinum to my dog when he had renal failure. Yes, Deborah. He was still in stage 1 after a year on the meds. Unfortunately, he had Addison's disease before I knew it, and he died from that. If I had known, I could have given him homeopathic meds. You're right. Yes. How about vaginal mucosa? That's right, Veronica. That's what I said earlier. Yes, the vaginal mucosa. Especially my friends, when it's a birthing animal. Yes, because that is the target area. We use Calcarb for mom and Carbo-Veg to bring a puppy back to life in my friend's litter. Yes, yes. Podcast 106, Old MacDonald. Thank you, Cheris. Old MacDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O has the cow story. Yes, in my podcast 106. Thank you, Cheris, for saying that, for bringing that up. We have a mama cow who calved not long ago and has been wanting to kick her calf off from nursing like she hasn't bonded correctly with him. Okay, my friends, what's the remedy? What's the remedy for a mama cow who calved not long ago and has been wanting to kick her calf off from nursing? What is that remedy? Let's see what you folks come up with. What's the medicine that the mother has had it with the baby, doesn't want to deal with the baby, pushes the baby away? Even real life, my friends. What do we have here? What are we saying? Let's see if you've got the answers. Sepia, says Karen. Susie B says sepia. You're right. Absolutely. Celeste Santiago says sepia. Harry says Steph. Steph Asagria. That's certainly a possibility. Sepia, says Tina. Sepia, says Deborah. Sepia. It's sepia, my friends. It is a hormonal issue. It is very specifically for hormones. When a mother in the afternoon has had it with her kids and says, I've got to get out of this house. I just can't handle another minute. Somebody help me or I'm going to lose my mind. Sepia. And you don't just give it to her that day. It means she probably needs it more frequently than that. And it's the same for any animal that pushes her offspring away. Sepia. Elizabeth, nice job. Donna M., sepia. You're absolutely right. Nice job. Yep. Very, very good. So tonight, let's see what time is. Okay, we have to wrap this up. We're going to go to Mighty's. And we're going to go to another dog named Lily. Oh, look at this. Yes, Vanderhoof Cheris says sepia, sepia. Okay, friends. See you there. Are we ready, Perry?
I'm moving.
Okay. Okay.